of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of election, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlines.
All right, I want to thank everybody for returning to the Friday edition of the Business Hour. Of course, I'm your host, Attorney Anthony Muhammad, right here on WSYP LP 95.1, and also streaming on the internet. Go to sankofaydp.com and get the link. Go to Facebook at WSYP 95.1, and you'll get the link there as well. So I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in and coming back to the Friday edition of the Business Hour. And and we're going to deal with some issues this morning that are pretty prevalent in our community. So we definitely don't want to hold this. We got back with us world-renowned and internationally acclaimed psychologist and traditional healer and community elder who has served our community for 30 plus years, her and her family. And I want to present back to you Dr. Mawiyah Kambon. Dr. Kambon, are you there?
Yes. Good morning to you, Brother Anthony.
Hey, good morning. And also, I think we have another Kambon on with us as well. Are you there?
I am here. Hi, this is Natasha. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Ms. Kambon. Now, Natasha, introduce yourself to the listening audience as well.
My name is Nataki Kambon. I am happy to be back. I know we talked about a year ago, I think, together on the show. Professionally, I'm a business management consultant, so I specialize in helping small businesses with whatever tools and resources they need to get profitable and operational and successful faster than if they tried to just kind of do it on their own and trial and error it.
Okay. All right, and I thank you for that. And of course, both of you, August is Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month. And Dr. Kambon, tell our audience, what is mental health?
So, I think we really have to look at that definition because it means different things to different people. And it truly is about being well, the wellness, being in harmony with ourselves, based on our foundation of who we are as a people. And I like to refer back to ancient Kemet, to Ma'at, as that balance, that harmony, all with nature. And when we are healthy, then we are mentally healthy too. And it is defined differently for us as people of African ancestry, because we look at wellness being in harmony with all of ourselves, as well as being in harmony with nature. And when there is a rupture in that, that is when we look at what we refer to as mental. But I would, in case you have a question about that, I would like to expand on that concept a little more.
Oh, you got it. Be our pleasure. Go ahead and expand upon it. It is August is Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month, and I want someone to get into that as well. But go ahead, Dr. Kambon.
And I'm going to have Nataki speak a little bit about the month, but I really want to focus more on what mental health is for Black people, because many people go to therapy and see therapists, but there's a difference when you see an African-centered therapist. An African-centered therapist deals with wholeness, and it's a holistic approach, mind, body, and spirit. And as you can see on my personal website, Unipa.com, the focus is to engage people on that holistic perspective. If you're out of alignment with the way you think, the way you behave, and the way you interact, which is what our culture is, then that can bring about issues for you in all of those areas. And so, therefore, wellness occurs when you get back into alignment with that. And we do that in many different ways. We do that through talk therapy, but we also engage in, as I do, in guided meditation. We also look at movement therapy like dance and other exercises and drumming. Music is one of the things that we call spiritual medicine. So we also engage in spiritual medicine. And if you were go to blacktherapycentral.com, we had a 10-day healing journey that focused on a lot of different areas of healing. We gave symbols and proverbs and activities, as well as the spiritual medicine that we did through music. And it's still up on our website, blacktherapycentral.com. And we encourage people to go there and get a glimpse of what therapy, what healing can be about.
All right, Sister Natasha, talk about August as a global Black Mental Health Awareness Month. Who came up with that idea?
Yes, so Black Therapy Central is made up of therapists and wellness professionals who are all African-centered, are the facilitators of many of the programs and events. And the website itself is made up of members who are like you and me, who just want to find resources to help with things that we're experiencing in our everyday lives, positive and challenging. The idea behind a global Black Mental Health Awareness Month really came about because the therapists in talking really looked at the mental health resources that are out there now. There is a Global Mental Health Awareness Day, but that doesn't address us as a people. There's also a Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, but since we're not minorities, that also doesn't address us and who we are. So the therapists talked and came up with a platform and an awareness campaign that really focuses on the unique needs of Black people around the world. And if I could, I'd like to read the principles and tenets of the campaign, because I think that really gets to the heart of why this campaign initiative is different.
Absolutely.
This is the first campaign initiative of its kind that stands firm on the principles that, one, Black people are not a minority, but rather a global majority.
Mm-hmm.
Two, Black people have unique and specific needs that should not be lumped in together with other underrepresented groups in America or elsewhere. Three, Black people are connected not only culturally and genetically throughout the world, but also have similar underlying mental health concerns as a direct result of the external causes like global anti-Black systemic racism. And four, many individual and local Black mental health challenges are symptoms of a larger global creative problem that we can counter by getting back to our roots and being more African-centered.
Wow. And Dr. Kambon, you know, they say we're 13.4% Africans here in America, and of those numbers, 16% reported having a mental illness in the past year. And that is about 7 million people. Talk about that, Dr. Kambon.
Yes, and I do believe that's an underrepresentation of the people who are actually suffering. Because if you think about it, through all the years that we have been here and endured discrimination, endured exploitation, watched and saw our people beaten, murdered, etc., we must question ourselves as to whether or not we are all balanced in the way that we should be. So that may give a different definition of the illness or the mental illness that we may be experiencing. But even if those numbers were correct, there are so few resources, and certainly relevant resources, that our people have to go And so Black Therapy Central is an opportunity for people to engage and understand, both therapists as well as people who are seeking service. We are seeking African-centered therapists, not just psychologists, who deal with healing, who understand that what we received in the academy is not the way that it benefits our people, unless you were fortunate enough to go to a school where we have one of our African-centered therapists as an instructor. But yes, so we have those many people who are suffering and have no way or don't know they have a way to receive services. And so we're trying to open it up more broadly. Stations like this, allowing us to come on and talk, helps our people to understand that there are people out there and that they can come to places like blacktherapycentral.com and find a therapist who might address some of those needs. Yes, but we are in dire needs, and this pandemic has not helped. Not only are we suffering as a result of this so-called virus, but we're also suffering because it becomes really apparent the disparity between the services received for us as a people and others. There have been reports of people being allowed to die in the waiting room. The emotional stress of that, let alone the physical engagement, begins to weigh on us. And it's almost like back in times of slavery when our people had to watch our women being raped and bellies cut open and men and women hung. Not even in slavery, but even after slavery. We're facing this modern day slavery now, and at the hands of law enforcement, so our people don't see that they have a right to fight back, and so therefore we see helpless, and that leads to tremendous stress, which has a direct impact on our physical wellness. So it increases high blood pressure, it increases heart disease, it increases physical ailments that we may not have experienced had we not been under this kind of a regime. And I'm talking about not just right now, but all the times that we've been here. We have not been able to rest as a people, and we need to step up and find ways to help ourselves.
Yeah,
Black
outstanding.
Therapy Central is one of those things.
All right, and well-reclaimed psychologist Dr. Kambon and Natasha Kambon, businesswoman. Natasha Kambon is on with us this morning to talk about mental health, August, or global mental health for blacks and Africans. Hey, look, now, I saw interesting. I'm glad you brought up Dr. Kambon, and I'm receiving a low signal from you. You may be on a speakerphone, but interesting here that you brought up COVID-19, and 1 month after they presented to these folks who presented to the emergency room with this COVID-19, and then were either treated in the hospital or at home. Reports that I'm looking at is out of 402 patients, 55% were found to have at least one psychiatric disorder, and according to this report, these disorders include, on top of everything else that we deal with up and down the line, but post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, in 28%, and depression in 31%, anxiety in 42%, and insomnia in 40%, and obsessive compulsive disorder in 20%. You want to discuss that?
Yes, and that's right on, and many of those could be collapsed into one, racial trauma, disorder. And so, but I'd like to start with post-traumatic because that has been promoted by even our own mental health people. Many call it post-traumatic slavery disorder. But I have to ask the question, when did slavery end? When did this trauma end? Post means that you passed it and you're still having, nightmares and sleep disorders and issues related to that. But our people have never been post-trauma in this country. So yes, you can point to certain individuals. You might point to someone like an Oprah Winfrey who seems to have made it. But I do recall her telling her story of the traumas that she has experienced in life. And even as a great host of a radio program, the attempt to drive her out at one point had to create stress. So none of us are past the trauma that we experience in this country. And so there's no post. And so that therefore does lead to the stressors that cause depression, which is a sadness, which includes inability to eat, inability to find happiness, things of that nature, and anxiety, which is really fear. That we know that our brothers talk about being out at night and seeing that blue light in their rear view mirror, and the anxiety builds for that. But the anxiety, we know now, builds that you can't jog while being black. You can't ride in the car while, you can't even sit in your own home while being black.
Right.
Because they will come against us, but we also have misguided youth who also been given guns because they could not afford to get them on their own.
That's right.
That there's someone who is planning our demise and giving these youth who are misguided guns, and they go out and shoot too. So our whole population is in the throes of stress, in the throes of anxiety, and I think that might be one of the most heightened so-called mental disorders that we experience.
All right, if you're just tuning in, we got Dr. Mawiyah Kambon, who is
Mawiyah
Kambon, who is a internationally acclaimed psychologist, traditional healer, and community elder who has served our community for over 30 plus years. And on with us as well is businesswoman and co-founder to Black Therapy Central, Natasha Kambon. Nataki. I'm screwing up this morning. Nataki Kambon. And you mentioned, Dr. Kambon, you mentioned police terror. And I talked about it earlier this week where over in Aurora, Colorado, where police stopped a car full of children and women and had them hit the hot pavement and handcuffed them, saying that he thought the car was stolen. Later, the car was not stolen, but pulled a gun on these folks and children. And the chief later offered therapy for the young 5-year-old. And you brought up police brutality. You want to talk about that a minute?
Yes, so that is the modern day lynch squad, modern day overseer. So we know that those kinds of things occurred during slavery and thereafter to traumatize our people so that we would stay in place. I could recall even, in more modern day times where police just stop people for no reason to traumatize them, to get them with this heightened anxiety, because it does lead to early death. If you're so highly anxious, it affects your cells. It affects and it passes on. So I want to talk a little bit later about intergenerational transmission of trauma.
Yeah, go ahead and discuss that.
Okay, because the trauma that we experienced since being here in this country has affected generations upon generations, and we label it as intergenerational transmission of trauma. So from generation to generation, in our DNA, in our blood, we transmit the trauma that we've experienced, that our ancestors experienced while here, onto generations. And if we don't do something to stop that, then we're going to continue to do that. And what that does is cripple us in many ways. Like I talked about, the learned helplessness, where we won't fight for our rights. And I don't mean politically fight. I mean, sometimes we have to get out there beyond the protest, demanding and taking what it is that we need. And I know that's a strong statement, to make. But that we have to realize that nobody is going to give us anything. And when we claim that power to take back what is right, then that rebuilds us. And it begins to sever that intergenerational transmission of trauma. It begins to stop it so that future generations, our babies are not born with that trauma. So we can sit in our home, as an immediate family and think that things are okay. But we know when we step outside that door and when we are in certain situations, that anxiety rises up. It becomes, and when we're in our jobs, we talk about microaggressions, the kinds of things that they do to us on our jobs to let us know that we will not rise any higher than we are. And so, yes, we may see one or two get to the top of these corporate places, but we are millions of people who have been disadvantaged just by living here, just by being black, or what my husband refers to, just by them being white, And that has to stop. And so Black Therapy Central is a place where African-centered healers come together. And I use that word loosely because we are not really doing the healing. We facilitate the healing in others. We help people identify that they do have strength because they come from a people who have been on this planet for tens of thousands of years, not just the 600 or 400 years of our enslavement here, but that we were able to create civilizations that were thriving, that taught people, foreigners from other lands, how to live, how to be human. And that is what an African-centered therapist does. They help us restore the humanity within ourselves so that we can function in any kind of situation.
I'm glad you broke that down, Dr. Kambon. Intergenerational transmission of that trauma. And I need you to deal with this stigma around mental health conditions. It's still pervasive in our community for black men, at least. And some studies have shown that 63% of us believe that a mental health condition is a sign of weakness. Talk about that stigma.
But yes, there has been a stigma brought on, unfortunately, by the church, as well as the concept of macho man, that you have to be able to handle anything that comes your way.
That's right.
In fact, I talked to someone yesterday, a brother that I'm working with, who told his father he was getting therapy, and his father said, "You're seeing a shrink? Nothing's wrong with you, boy." And then he called him back, he said, the next day to check on him to make sure he was okay.
Wow.
And so, it comes about in different levels. That you don't have to be ready to understand that you've got some things going on. But Nataki, why don't you speak to that stigma issue?
Yeah, and so, we do need to acknowledge that, yes, there once was a stigma and that not everyone has gotten beyond that. But one of the things within our community that will help us from a mental health perspective is to focus on what people are doing that has a positive impact. I think so often we focus on the negative, even when it's a small group of people, and because we get so mired in the negative, we're not able to move forward. And so with that, I think, there are millions and millions of people who are openly talking about therapy. There are dozens of groups that we've reached out to who are excited about Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month, and they're spreading the word to all of their members and participants. The website is getting to 10,000 hits a day, blacktherapycentral.com, for people who are actually seeking out counseling and resources. So, when we're having discussions about mental health, yes, there are some who once thought that it was something other than it is, but I think we should look at, how many people are really embracing it on a national and international level and are finding it to be a helpful resource, and then inviting those who are to have conversations with those who may not have caught up yet. The last point I would make is that one of the reasons why that stigma existed is because mental health, as it was addressed in the past, was a product of a white psychological framework. And because it was a product of a white psychological framework, Dr. Kambon has a quote where she says, that wasn't for us, it doesn't heal us, it was never meant for us. And when we're looking at, what this is talking about from Black Therapy Central, we're talking about African-centered therapy and African-centered resources that are really culturally rooted in things that are meant for us and that heal us. And when we recognize that, okay, this isn't something that was created by other people for them, this is something that has, been within our community for centuries, the African-centered traditional healing practices, and then, how we can relate it to what's going on today. And the final point I wanted to make is just, I think there is also a misconception that there is something wrong with you, so you need therapy. And what the reality is you can look at any topic, situation, personal situation, political situation, social situation, and the way that you look at that situation, there's always a mental health component that affects your view of that situation and how you move forward or think about it or engage with it. And once we recognize that it's not, there's a mental health issue, and now I'm going to deal with my mental health issue, it's that I need to be aware of how my mental health affects the way that I see the world and the way I engage. Then we recognize that just like good diet, just like, staying informed politically, staying, engaged in community, these are all things that we should always do. It's not something that you only do when you think you have a problem.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And I'd like to underscore that, too,
Okay.
because that is true. It's a holistic approach, as I mentioned before. And so, therefore, it's almost like prevention. You go to work, work is stressful. So you come and get your checkup like you would a doctor to make sure that, like a physician, to make sure that everything's okay. You start feeling a little uneasy. Because in African-centered mental health, as I talked about the different mediums, there are different ways that we teach people to be well, so that, as I mentioned, African dance, going out in nature, getting sunshine, eating healthy, things that we attribute to mental illness is not exclusively of the mind. So you don't, and I think part of the stigma, again, as you mentioned, is that people think of mental health services as being hospitalized. And that has been so traumatic to our people that we don't recommend hospitalization unless absolutely necessary. What we try to do is teach people the skills within their own selves, within our own culture, that have girded us for thousands of years. Because those are the things that kept us mentally, physically, and spiritually well.
World-renowned psychologist Dr. Kambon is with us this morning to talk about Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month, and also businesswoman Nataki Kambon is with us as well. Dr. Kambon, I got to ask you about, and a lot of folks in our audience deal with the youth in these youth services and these programs around the county and around the country. Talk about common disorders amongst our children, anxiety disorders and all the other things.
Again, we're not going to go to your Asian definitions of disorders.
I got you.
Rarely, even though in my practice I'm required to put a disorder if I'm going to deal with an insurance. If our children are not in holistic families, and what I mean holistic is, as I expressed, families that express mental wellness, physical wellness, spiritual wellness, based on our cultural foundation that I mentioned before, might even undergird it as living a life of ma'at. And so who totally does that? But our children feel the energy from the disruptions in our community, from the disruptions in our family, and they express it. So I am also a child psychologist in addition. As a child psychologist, sometimes children come in and they are what we call the identified patient.
Okay.
The issue isn't really with them, It's with other members of the family and how the family is not functioning well. And so therefore we look at what is the issue going on with the family, what's creating this problem that gets expressed through this innocent child who we give thanks to. And I often do that. I thank them for coming and exposing the issue so that the family can get well together. But part of the problem we have also in this society is many of our children are taken away from family. Sometimes because they have to, because the family's so dysfunctional, or that they are not expressing, but sometimes because we're just in the system, and that we don't lend ourselves to assisting. We don't live in communities anymore where people help people. And so it's never been the job in our story as African people for one person or two people to raise a child. So we have the African proverb, it takes a whole village to raise one child.
No question
And
about
the
it.
village is not responding.
Good,
And so
good
we
point.
see our children suffering because they don't have others that they can go to. You know, like the grandmas and the big mamas and the grandfathers and the uncles and all, and community people. You know, and you know, I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut. I'm born in New York. But and on our block, of course, we're all black people. And so if I was out of order, anybody on that block could say something to me and then report it to my grandmother who raised me, who would then get on me too. So it wasn't just limited. And so that's too much stress for one or two people to try to raise children. And so we have to begin to extend the borders of what we identify as family and expose our children to that. When we had communities before integration, it would be whole blocks that would raise the children.
Good point.
So that if a parent didn't have resources, somebody in that community would feed the children. The children could go into their houses and receive homework help. Those are the things that keep us mentally well balanced. And those are the things that we have to get back to. So mental health is not just about going to see a therapist. It's about creating a therapeutic environment within our community. And mental health therapists can assist in that. I also work with businesses and corporations for them to create healing spaces because they put too much stress on employees. And that we need to rise above this slave-driven society to create mental wellness. Black Mental Health Awareness Month is to inform our people around the globe that we must get back to our own ways of being and to teach us how to do that. So Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month is the time to do that.
Yeah, much love and respect for this family that Kambons, man. And look, much love and respect. From that African-centered perspective and worldview, we're dealing with global black mental health and coined it August as Awareness Month. Black Therapy Central, co-founders on the phone with us. And Dr. Kambon, I got to ask you, we already know that exception in the 13th Amendment that leads to that mass incarceration of our people. But mental health court, some have established 56% of state prisoners and 64% of jail inmates have had a mental health issue. Currently, there are about near 3,000 crisis intervention teams, allegedly. Well, law enforcement, you know, but that's another story. Talk about the concentration camps called jails and prisons and mental health.
You know, we really take a whole show on that. You know,
I know.
Probably the biggest one we know about is Angola, which is truly nothing more than a huge plantation where they have incarcerated thousands upon thousands of mostly black men to go out and do physical labor that they then don't have to pay for. You know, slavery has not ended in this country,
That's
as
right.
you know, from the 13th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
They have just relabeled it as prison time.
That's right.
And when they first put out that amendment, they would just pick up black people, predominantly black men off the street and put them in jail so that they could have free labor for that season, you know. And it has not stopped. Now that we have the Klan within our police forces, they not only put us in jail, but they also murder us. So we have to fight back. Black Mental Health Awareness Month is also about understanding our condition so that we don't continue to internalize these issues. These are not, they are problems that we have to face, but they're not things that were brought on as a result of normal conditions. These were brought on as a result of us living in this society, in this world where this global pandemic against black people exists. And the only way to stop it is for us to come together, be aware that it exists, and fight it.
Yeah, and Nataki, I got to ask you about Black Therapy Central, because I've seen the name that you added, Dr. Nobles, to that resource. Talk about some of your resources at Black Therapy Central.
Yeah, and definitely want to invite all the listeners to visit the website. It's designed to be incredibly interactive and offer a lot of resources. So there are different articles and things that people can read and learn more about mental health. There's an event calendar with different activities you can engage in. Dr. Kambon just mentioned the 10-day healing journey, which was this whole interactive, multi-dimensional thing with music and African symbols and all these things in activity that you could do either on your own, or you could do it with friends or family to really help put you in a space to help with just whatever you're dealing with, or even if you're not dealing with an issue, like good diet and exercise. You don't wait till you have a problem to start eating well. You don't wait till you have a problem to maintain your physical health.
Mm-hmm.
It's just to help optimize your mental health. So there are all of these resources that you can engage in. Of course, for people who are looking for therapy and who want to explore how and why African-centered therapy is different, you can find a Black therapist there. And one of the main points there is that these are all it's not any and everyone who can join. There's a vetting process because it's really those who understand who we are from an African-centered perspective, who we are from a culturally rooted perspective, and who are bringing those solutions. Because what we recognize is that it can't just be a Black face on European psychology.
That's
because
right.
that doesn't help us.
Mm-hmm.
So there are all of these resources there. There's a stress relief corner with a couple of games and quizzes, and that's going to be expanding soon. So it's just, I would just say that from the desktop or a tablet, you can see this whole mega menu that just has a number of things, and I just encourage people to get lost in the website. And then if you're using it from your smartphone, just kind of look through the menu and see what's there. There's a big graphic on the homepage that invites you to learn about Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month, and there are things that you can do like share download and share the graphics, have a conversation with friends and family about mental health, and because so often you say, "Hey, how are you doing?" And almost the auto response is, "Oh, I'm fine." And sometimes you're not fine.
That's right.
And sometimes people aren't fine. And via text, you may miss out on the tone of someone's voice. So actually having conversations. So there's just a number of ways to engage. So this is just an open invitation for all the listeners to go to blacktherapycentral.com and explore and just get involved, register for an event. You can register for the website. There is an account. There's one general account, and it's called a Forever Free account. And it's interesting because that term was meant to imply that it was always going to be, monetarily free to join. But there was a sister who registered and messaged and said, wow, I love that this account is called Forever Free, as in like freedom, like, here's a place where we can go to get resources to forever feel free. Just again, it's all in your mental outlook, how you even view view different terms and things that come at you. And then there's also a section, some of the therapists who are on. We've got Dr. Jamila Codrington, who's based out of New York. We've got Dr. Afia Mbilishaka, a powerful sister who coined the term therapy, who talks about how our hair affects our well-being in general, and our perceptions of our hair affect us from a mental health perspective.
Interesting.
She's based out of D.C. We have Dr. Anthony Smith out of Durham, North Carolina. We have one of the thought leaders who came up with the concept of Black and African-centered psychology, Dr. Wade Nobles, who's the elder advisor. They're all there, and people can reach out to them. But one of the challenges is, more therapists can join, and there's an invitation for other therapists to join, because there are some of the therapists who have reached capacity. Their practice can't take on more people right now, but other therapists are wanted to, pick up the call and help those who are seeking this out, because there are so many people who are looking for resources now. So that's why this is here.
Yeah.
And I'd like to also add to that we are doing radio programs and webinars so that we can also help train Black therapists to be African-centered.
Oh, cool.
So that it's not automatic. We've all come through these academies. That is not the focus. So it takes relearning to understand that. And so we're partnering with the Association of Black Psychologists to create certification for Black therapists who want to become African-centered therapists. And that's a big push that we have, so that we have many Black therapists on there, and they may be good in their understanding, but it takes a step further. And as I mentioned, the foundation is our culture. And I heard a therapist the other day talk about separating what he does. For example, he's a spiritual healer as well, how he separates that from his work as psychologist. But I see me as one person, and what I receive to assist those who come to me comes through that one person, so that many things that come are from our culture. And so we use those things to assist us to be well and to teach us how to stay well. So that we first talk about, in our community, the first thing that people say, that person crazy. That does not exist. We are one, maybe not in alignment, not in balance as a result of what's experiencing here, but also many of our people are grounded in spirituality and just don't know how to capture it and use it to their own benefit.
Outstanding.
So in African-centered therapy, we help people see all of that.
And Dr. Kambon, I need you to talk about your services at ONIPA. And one that sticks out to me, Dr. Kambon, is the online teletherapy for those who's out of state. Talk about some of your services.
Yes. So, yes, I do therapy, which, now is really great as a result of this pandemic. Not that the pandemic is great, but I'm able to access people all around. Actually, I get people from around the globe who come for services. And so teletherapy is a legalized way, what they call HIPAA-compliant way. And on my site, I have a HIPAA-compliant way of doing that. So no, Skype is not an answer. You cannot do it legally and ethically that way because people have access to that information. HIPAA compliant means that the confidentiality is protected through this tele-video service. So I offer that. I also offer guided meditation. And that's probably where I connect my spiritual work with my psychological work. People do guided meditation, the purpose of which is to help people release and relieve from their consciousness so that they can, get into their, I'm going to go ahead and say their spirit self, so that they can be guided beyond their brain telling them what to do, in a conscious way. And sometimes through guided meditation, oftentimes through guided meditation, I may be guiding them somewhere, but their own spirit takes them where it wants them to go so that they can begin to experience. And so I also check in at the end to make sure how that journey was, to see whether or not it was indeed healing for them, and to remind them, because I give them words, remind them that they can use those words at any time to bring about that same experience of wellness and well-being. So those are things, and as I mentioned before, I'm a child psychologist, so I deal with children and families and couples. And I guess this COVID has brought about a lot of stress for couples because I'm almost overwhelmed by the number of couples that call in to receive services or seeking services. And, I'm also pleased that they are open to receive services, which has also driven more men to my practice because they realize that taking therapy or engaging in therapy with a woman does not emasculate them, that it doesn't take just a man-to-man. And sometimes it's easier for men to go to women who are open because then they are still concerned about how many people know what they're doing. So it's confidential. The therapist cannot talk to her friends or others about what it is you say. They can't even talk to your own family. They can't even tell your own family members that you're in therapy. They can encourage you to tell if it's beneficial to the treatment and the services you receive. But it's a confidential practice. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I got my master's in 75, so it's much more than that. I got my doctorate in 90. I've been in head of the county's child and family services for mental health, and I've been in my own private practice since 2001. And so I really love our people, and I love the fact that we can do this work together. So it is not me giving our people anything when they come. It's us finding the strength within you that can be used to assist you in your healing.
Awesome. August, Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month. And if you just tuning in, you missed the doozy. We'll replay this, by the way, at 12:02 and 12:02, I think it is, and 6. So come back and tune in at least at 12:02. We have with us a businesswoman, Nataki, of course, Kambon, and the world-renowned, acclaimed psychologist, Dr. Kambon, is with us as well. Dr. Kambon, we are 11.5% of black Africans, according to some, versus 7.5% of whites are still uninsured. Talk about how do you pay for your services and whether you accept Medicaid and Medicare.
Yeah, so I do accept insurances and out-of-pocket as well. I have had a couple of pro bono cases as well, but one of the things that we're also trying to do is to expose our people to wellness treatment through healing circles that are occurring in the Association of Black Psychologists and others. But yes, there are fees for services as well as insurance will take as well. So we don't have, I don't take all the insurances, but if you contact me or register on ONIPA, O, N as in Nancy, I as in Ice, P as in Peter, A, ONIPA.com, then you can ask the questions. You can register yourself and sign up for an appointment. And we will get back to you to let you know what we do, what's required of you. And really all that's required of you is that you come willing to address the issues that you face.
And give that number once again, Dr. Kambon. Give that telephone number once again. All right. Sister Nataki, you there? Did we have everyone there?
Yes. Well,
Okay.
and I couldn't hear the audio for a second. And what was the number you were asking for?
Yes, ma'am, for consultation for Dr. Kambon.
Yeah, so for consultations with Dr. Kambon or questions about Black Therapy Central, you can call country code 1, so 1-919-729-6509. Again, it's 1-919-729-6509. Mainly, one thing that we encourage people to do is definitely utilize the websites and resources there. If you have questions, both her website and Black Therapy Central have a live chat option where you can type a message and chat with a human who may be able to answer some questions about therapy in general. You can't use those chat features to get therapy because there are some compliance things that have to happen. So those are not necessarily therapists who you're chatting with, but you can learn more there. And then also on both websites there is a resource that's called How Can Therapy Help Me? And on the homepage of onipa.com, which is Dr. Kambon's website, ONIPA.com, onipa.com, there's a How Can Therapy Help Me quiz. And there is also a How Can Therapy Help Me quiz on blacktherapycentral.com. And I encourage everyone to take the quiz. It asks you some questions. It's virtually the same quiz on both places because the same, obviously Dr. Kambon is one of the co-founders, and that was a quiz that was on her site, and so many people have found it helpful that she really thought it was important to allow Black Therapy Central to use the same resource on its site. But you can take it in either place. You don't have to take it in both. But it allows you to just ground yourself in some of the just where you are, like an annual checkup at the doctor, or like you always just even we get our cars tuned up periodically. You just always want to know how things are doing. You can take it and see how therapy could help you. So that resource is there. So between the live chat, the How Can Therapy Help Me, on Dr. Kambon's site, you can actually, my consulting firm actually designed her site. So everything is set up so it's very seamless. You can self-schedule an appointment. You can set up teletherapy. You can do everything from your smartphone or tablet or laptop or computer. And then on blacktherapycentral.com, that is also a responsive website, meaning that you can access all the features on your phone. You can join the newsletter and get more information about just free tips and resources that are being posted all the time.
Yes.
And yeah, I think those are the resources.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure and an honor to talk to both of you, Dr. Kambon and Nataki Kambon, businesswoman. And look, and brilliant, both of you. But take a minute. We're at closing. Take a minute to tell our audience anything you would like to close on.
Well, I really want our people to understand that we are all here. We are all in this together. And that there are some of us who are prepared to assist others of us to get through this together so that we can get to the other side a more whole people, prepared to take over this world and to provide the kind of resources that we will need to be successful in the future. And one of those major resources is to be whole, mind, body, and spirit. And so here at Black Therapy Central, here in this month of August, Black August, that we have claimed for the fallen heroes that we have, we have decided to claim a global Black mental health awareness opportunity for our people, and that we will continue this every August. Participate, to find someone that you can talk to who will be able to assist you to be able to move forward. And so also, Brother Anthony, I would like to send you a flyer that I'm also engaged, as you mentioned, as a counselor, spiritual healer, in that this month we are going to have an Ancestral Veneration Day, which will be August 19th. And so I would like for you to promote that as well. I've started to send out a flyer about that. But we are going to ask our people around the world, again, global ancestral awareness day, veneration day, where we're going to raise up our ancestors, those that were fallen from the past, taken from us. We're going to ask the strong ones, to pull up those others, especially these in this country and around the world that have been murdered, slaughtered, beaten, exploited. We're going to ask them to pull them up because we need them. And so that is in addition to Global Mental Health Awareness Month, we're having Global Ancestral Veneration Day.
Yeah, I'll look forward to the flyer and make sure I do exactly what you say. And it's been an honor and a pleasure, and we're ran smack out of time.
Well, I'll just say Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month. We want our people around the globe to attend to that, and we invite you to blacktherapycentral.com.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Kambon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nataki Kambon. It's been a pleasure and an honor. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're at the end of the program, of course, and I want to thank everybody out there for tuning in to this broadcast. And we can't take a call. We couldn't take a call because the lines was full. We got to get out of here, man. And thank you all for listening. The underwriter to this program is GBR Products at gbrproducts.net, and Dr. Fox, who wrote the book, Addicted to White. Hey, it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve you, and we will continue to do that and give you that knowledge and information across these airways. All right, we got to get out of here. In the words of Chairman Fred, I wish you peace if you're willing to fight.
We are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy